Hi, thank you so much, Judy, for inviting me to your group tonight. I think it's perfect timing to introduce you all to this new program. I want to give a disclaimer. I guess I don't know if you all are used to using the function on Zoom for the reaction, but just by show of hands, who has heard of the word self-determination program? Have an idea of what it is? Thumbs up. I see one thumbs up, two thumbs up, a couple hands. Okay, good. That's perfect. I only see about 5. So that's good. This is perfect, a perfect presentation. It is a relatively new program that has been open to a select few. But I want to let you all know that this presentation I'm doing tonight is a basic overview of the self-determination program. You can think of it as kind of a teaser to kind of get you interested and to come back for more. So this is by no means a tell-all of what the self-determination program is, just a real basic overview. And I'm really glad that we paired it up with Debra's presentation because she will review a different side of self-determination and how the independent facilitator can help. So let's kind of go over an overview of what the presentation is today. We will talk about, in general, what is the self-determination program. And I'm really glad that Judy has tried to focus this presentation to people who are receiving services from the regional center, because it is open only to people who receive services from the regional center. So we'll talk a little bit about how is it different from what type of support you're getting from the regional center now. We'll talk about what are some key things you need to know in order to participate in the program. We'll talk about how the program works. And then finally, if I did a good job and you're interested in potentially enrolling, we'll talk about what are the next steps after this presentation. So before we get started, who is eligible for the self-determination program? Anyone who's eligible for the regional center Lanterman services. So I put in parentheses over the age of 3. So anyone that you know who might be eligible for early start services, babies through 3, they won't be eligible for this program. So this is open to anyone who receives regional center services over the age of 3 Lanterman. The second criteria is anyone who's interested in participating must live in the community. The goal of this program is really to allow people to live self-determined lives where they're included in their community. So that means that people who live in licensed settings such as a skilled nursing or an intermediate care facilities are not eligible unless they have plans to move out of those facilities in the future. And that is a federal requirement that people who are in the self-determination program really do have access to the community, are not in licensed settings. Throughout the presentation and throughout the self-determination journey, there are some terms you'll hear that may be familiar and some may be new. The first term is Person-Centered Planning, or PCP. The second term is the Individual Program Plan, or IPP. If you have been receiving services from the regional center, you may be familiar with the IPP as the report or the meeting that we have typically during your birthday months, just to kind of catch up on how things are going in your life, any goals and services that you're addressing. If you are part of the regional center, you have a regional center service coordinator who will still continue to support you while you're in self-determination. A few newer words you will hear is Independent Facilitator, or the IF. This is a newer type of role or person who will help you through your self-determination journey. The fifth term is Financial Management Services, or FMS. And this is an agency that will help you manage the monetary part of self-determination. And then finally, we have individual budget, which is the amount of money you have to spend while you're in self-determination. Okay, so those are just some terms you will hear throughout the presentation. So an overview of what self-determination is. Self-determination is a program that's designed to really allow people who receive services from the regional center to have more choice, control, and responsibility in living their own lives. It is designed so that you can pick services and supports that fit your life. not the other way around. And I talked to Judy a little bit beforehand to kind of get an idea of who I'll be speaking to tonight. But there are some times where services are offered by the regional center from our vendor system that may not fit into what you would like to have into your life, right? So services are typically offered, and this is what you can pick. You can pick vendor A, B, or C. Which one would you like? And maybe they might not work out. In self-determination, you have a little bit more flexibility control into picking the service and supports that fit your life. In self-determination, you have an individual budget to determine an individual budget which you are able to spend on services and supports for the year. So with this individual budget, you can decide, this is how I want to use my money in the next 12 months. In self-determination, you'll continue to get lots of support from those around you. So it's really important to make sure to identify those who help you in your everyday life, who know you really well, who are able to advocate for you, and who are able to kind of help identify your strengths, your goals, and maybe identify new and creative ways you can kind of reach your potential, your goals, and your dreams. And finally, with the self-determination, it's person-centered. So you hear the terms person-centered planning, person-centered thinking. Self-determination is a culmination of person-centered thinking and person-centered planning. And we want to make sure that you design your life and your services supports around you, because you are the expert in your lives. So just to give you a little bit history of the self-determination program and why people are so excited to have the self-determination program finally available for people who receive services from the regional center. It's been a really long journey. So in 1998, and if I can't do my math right, 23 years ago. So 23 years ago, the self-determination program started a pilot project. So what a pilot project is they're basically testing this out. So they tested it out with 5 regional centers, starting in 1998 to see if this program is something that works out and something that people are interested in. Regional Center of Orange County was not one of the pilot groups. Locally, I believe East Los Angeles and San Diego were part of that pilot group. So it took 15 years for that pilot project to go on. In 2013, Governor Brown signed the self-determination program into law, saying self-determination program should be available and will be available for people who receive services from the regional center. It took another 5 years for the waiver application to be approved. What that means is the state is submitting paperwork to the federal government saying this is how we want to present the self-termination program. Here are some of the criteria, and here's how we want to run it. And the reason why the federal government has a say in that is because there's partial funding from the federal government. So that took so by this point, the pilot program has been going on for 20 years. So people are very excited. They're anxious to get started. During that time, when the government says, yeah, the application's approved, we can have self-determination, what we had was a soft rollout. So it was not a pilot program. A soft rollout means let's try it out for a few years with a small group of people and figure out what some of the barriers, some of the issues or difficulties we're having is before we open up to everybody. So at this point, 3 years ago, the state of California chose 2,500 people all across California to be part of that initial rollout. 150 people in Orange County were chosen. So they were selected at random from different age, ethnic, disability backgrounds to kind of cover the spectrum of people we serve in Orange County. So this past 3 years, we have been working in Orange County with the first 150 people to kind of work out the self-determination program. Finally, July 1st, which was very exciting, self-determination is available to all those who are eligible. So the people who are eligible is what I talked about earlier, people over the age of 3 receiving Lanterman services and who live within the community setting. So I go and tell you this whole timeline because it's really important to understand all the work that went in by, you know, parents, families, self-advocates, the legislator, just to kind of get to where we are right now. I mean, again, I can't do a math, that's why I'm a social worker. It's been 23 years in the making to get to where we are right now. People are very eager and excited to have a little bit more control over the services that they receive, okay? So just to give you a little bit of background. So in creating the self-determination program, the people who advocated for this program really wanted to focus on 5 principles of self-determination. And this is something we want people to continually to remember what self-determination really is all about. So the first principle is freedom. Freedom, that you have the freedom to plan your own life and to make your own decision, right? So number 1 principle of self-determination is freedom. I can plan my own life. I choose who I spend time with. I choose who helps me. Authority. So authority is another principle where you have a control over the budget for services, right? So instead of having the regional center, again, offer you, these are the vendors, these are the services we have available, which may not fit, again, your life goals or your lifestyle, you now have the authority, control over how to spend the money within your budget. The third principle is support. So again, with support, you will have the ability to pick who are the people that help support you in everyday life. Who do I want to help me where I live? Who do I want to help me with where I work and where I spend my time doing recreational activities? If you think about, again, to traditional regional center services, we refer you to a vendor, and this vendor will potentially send someone out to help you out with anything that you might need support with. That person they spend out might not be a good match. In self-determination, the hope is you have a little bit more control, flexibility, and freedom to pick, I know someone who's a perfect match to help me meet my goals. I want this person to work for me. The fourth principle is responsibility. So responsibility to make decisions in your life and have a valued role in your community. Okay, so in self-determination, we have a lot more freedom and flexibility, but with all that freedom and flexibility, there's a responsibility to make decisions that will help enhance your life. And part of this too, the responsibility is a responsibility to spend public and federal dollars in the way that the program has intended it to. The final principle is confirmation. So confirmation that you are the decision maker in your life. Okay, so those are the 5 principles of self-determination. When this program was created, they really wanted to nail in and make sure that the program and the way that this is done is honored. So freedom, authority, support, responsibility, and confirmation. All really great things that everyone should really have in their lives. So let's get into, we talked about big picture self-determination of what the principles, how it should impact your life and what the principles are. Let's talk a little bit more in details of how it looks different. So again, in traditional services, whether you have been receiving regional center support for a long time or you're very new, in traditional services, this is what support looks like. So there's person-centered planning process. So that process is gathering with your team, whether it is you, someone who knows you really well, someone who is paid to help you, and the regional center service coordinator. You all should be ideally getting together and talking about what's going on in my life, what kind of goals do I want to achieve, what do I need to achieve those goals. You work with a regional center service coordinator who is your point of contact to connect you with services that the regional center provides. You have an IPP, or an individual program plan, which is a report that highlights your goals, highlight what's going on in your life, and highlights any services that the regional center is paying for. And we work with vendor providers. So what vendor providers mean is the regional center has an agreement with certain agencies or vendors. These vendors provide us with paperwork. They provide us with a program design telling us this is the type of service that I'm providing. This is how much I will charge for my service. There's an agreement between the regional center and these vendors on these type of services. And you're only able to pick services from these vendors. So it's a little bit limited. In self-determination, right? So if you think about it, it's two paths. So you're in traditional services, which was the only thing that was available, or you can choose to be in the self-determination program instead, right? So I'm in traditional services, or I want to go into or I want to go in self-determination. In self-determination, you still have that person-centered planning process where you get together with your team and talk about your goals and what services you need to meet those goals. Your service coordinator will still be there to support you. You will still have an IPP, an individual program plan or report that outlines all this information. What's different is now you can access vendors that work with the regional center or people who are not vendored with the regional center. And that's a very exciting thing because sometimes the vendors that we have with the regional center are a little bit more limited. There's not a lot of them. They may not work with your schedule, or they may not have the staff that you want. They may not have the service you want. So now you can access non-vendor providers. So what does that mean? That means I can go down to the local community center. I can go down to the Parks and Recs department. I can talk to a neighbor or a friend that I know really well and negotiate with these people and talk to these people about how they can help me meet my goals, right? So you can now have more choice in picking who you want to pay to help you. In the self-determination, a new thing you have is you have an individual budget. So if you think about a budget, right? If you think about a household budget, how much money I had to spend for a week, how much money I had to spend for a month, this is a similar thing. In self-determination, you will have an individual budget which says how much money I have to spend for the next 12 months for my services in self-determination. There's a new person around that is able to help you out to navigate because this is very new. It may be a lot to manage. It may be intimidating. And the independent facilitator is this new person in self-determination. It could be one person. It could be multiple people who help you manage the program. And I will leave it at that. Hopefully Debra can do a better job than me in the second half. The last thing in self-determination is the FMS, or the financial management services. So the money in the individual budget, you never have to touch. It does not go into your bank account or anything like that. So if anyone qualifies for benefits and you're worried about this, you don't ever have to worry about it. The FMS is there to help manage those, manage the finances. They help pay the bills for the services in self-determination. Okay, so that's how self-determination is different from traditional model. So right now, I'm assuming most of you, all of you probably, are in traditional services. You have the option to go into the self-determination program if this is something you're interested in. So again, how is self-determination different? Again, you have an individual budget. So an individual budget that is allocated for 12 months from whenever you start. And with this budget, you decide what service and supports you want to buy, okay? So instead of using a regional center vendor, you can decide, you know what? I really wanna learn how to cook. So I'm gonna hire someone to coach me on how to cook and meal prep for the week. So you can decide what type of service and who is the person that's helping you out. Oh, I skipped to the next bullet. So you decide who helps you, right? So once you decide this is the service I want, or this is the help I need, now I can pick who is the person that can help me. And you get to choose where you go in the community. So right now there's maybe limitations of where the vendors provide services or any type of center. The whole goal of self-determination is for you to be fully immersed and receive services in your community. So you can choose, I actually want to take my local cooking class down the street at the community center. They have a cooking class once a month, and I want to have someone help me with that, right? So you choose where you get your services, where you go in the community. And finally, you get to pick who you spend time with, right? So self-determination is all about I have choice, I have control. So with this individual budget, you have the ability to pick what type of service, where is it at, and who helps me. So some examples of services that you can potentially pay for in self-determination, and these are, again, just examples. You can pay for a graphics art class. You can potentially pay for a personal trainer. You can pay for transportation, which is really exciting. If you need transportation to get to certain places in the community, you can pay for that. You can potentially pay for swimming classes or a swimming coach. If you want to have a little bit of help on building relationships and making friends, you can hire a friendship coach, or you can hire a cooking teacher, right? And these are things that people have identified that, you know, I had my person-centered plan. These are the goals I want to accomplish. And okay, how do I meet those goals, right? If I want to learn how to have more friends, perhaps I need a friendship coach. And these are things that people kind of made up through that person-centered planning process of potential services that can help them get to their goal. There is a caveat with all this freedom, flexibility, we still need to be responsible and meet program requirements. So the supports and services must meet federal program guidelines. So there are certain services that in order to get federal funding for this program, they need to meet these federal program guidelines. And the second part is you must use generic resources first, just like in the traditional regional center system. So if you have another agency or another type of support that can pay for your service, we need to first use that before we use the regional center self-termination funds. So an example is, let's say you want a dietitian to help me have a healthier lifestyle. If you want to hire a dietitian, this is something that usually can be covered by health insurance or Medi-Cal. So we would ask and make sure that you explore Medi-Cal or your health insurance first to make sure, hey, is this someone that could pay for it before you use the funds from your self-determination budget? Okay, so those are two things that we need to honor in self-determination. So some key things to remember, this program is completely voluntary. If you decide to enroll in self-determination and you decide it's not for you, you can always come back to the traditional regional center system. And the second thing is you must live in the community. Okay, so living in the community, again, I don't think this should really be an issue with the people that I'm talking to today. I'm pretty sure you all live in the community, whether it is on your own or with family members. So the self-determination is designed so that you are included in your community. So the services that you pick and choose really is about inclusivity. So you want to tailor your services that fit your needs. You want to make sure that the services that you pick align with the goals that you have in your life and that's outlined in your IPP and through the person-centered planning process. And you also want to make sure that services support your full access to the community. And again, I don't think this should be a problem with you folks, but we don't want you to pay for services or pick services that segregate you and keep you with only people with disabilities. And so that's something that we want to make sure that you're choosing services that help you live in the community in an inclusive environment. So how does self-determination work? And again, this is a brief overview. It starts with you. And you start with the person-centered planning process where you identify your goals. You'll have a service coordinator and an independent facilitator, if you choose to have one, to kind of help you through this process because it is new and there's a lot of things to kind of determine. Through the person-centered planning process, we'll identify what your goals are. You'll have an individual budget to work with to spend on services for the year. And again, you have the financial management service, the FMS agency, who kind of help you along this journey. I'm going to do a brief overview of each one of these parts in self-determination. So in the person-centered planning process, the person-centered planning meeting is a meeting, is a meeting where you drive, sorry, I'm getting a little bit distracted with the background noise. So it's a meeting where you are at the center of the meeting. So you or your loved ones at the center of the meetings, and you should really surround yourself with people who know you well to help you think about your goals, hopes, and dreams. Because thinking about what you want a good life, your life to look like can be hard. So you want to make sure you're surrounding yourself with people who know you really well and have your interests at heart, right? So the meeting is really all about you. You decide who is going to run this meeting, who is going to be there to help you out, who do I want to be part of my team. You might want to think about maybe there are people I don't want part of my team too, right? So maybe there's someone that in your life who maybe they're not a good fit for planning the big dream. Okay, so at this part that you're in the driver's seat, decide who you want to be on your team. During this meeting, it should be a really positive meeting. So during this meeting, we want to ask you, what are some of your hopes? What are some of your dreams? What's really important to you? What do you like and what are you good at, right? So it should be a really positive meeting where we're focusing on your strengths and what you're good at.
Sorry, that's me.
That's okay. Once we identify, what your hopes and dreams are, we want to start setting meaningful goals that gets you closer to those dreams, right? So some dreams are really big and they may not get accomplished, but those dreams tell us something about what's important to you in your life. So from there, we want to set tiny goals that are meaningful to you that you can meet within the next year or two. So once you figured out, I know what I want my good life to look like, these are some goals I want to accomplish, that's when you start talking about services. What kind of help, what type of services, supports do I need to reach these goals? Who do I want to help me reach these goals? What supports do I already have, right? So that's kind of talking back to the generic resources. Who in my life, or what do I have in my life that I already have that can help me reach these goals? And then now, what type of supports or services do I want to buy with my funds from self-determination? Your service coordinator will still be a part of your life, and this person will help you continue to identify services and supports through the traditional regional center system. So they'll be there to let you know what you're eligible for in traditional services. They will help you identify your individual budget. So just like with now in traditional services, no two clients of the regional center are the same. Services are individualized and based on what your needs are. So your individual budget will be similar. It will be based on what your individual needs are in the traditional system. So your service coordinator will help you get that individual budget. Your service coordinator will continue to help you develop your individual program plan, or IPP. So again, remember, that's a report that contains all that information about what's going on in your life, what are your goals, and what services you're receiving. Your service coordinator will help you to make sure that the services you pick are eligible services in self-determination. So again, that's going back to the responsibility. We need to make sure that the services you pick are federally recognized and eligible services. In self-determination, you have an independent facilitator. So you may be thinking, how can an independent facilitator help me in self-determination? So this person can help you as much or as little as you want in self-determination. It's completely up to you. The independent facilitator is a new role in self-determination. It's voluntary. If you want to have an independent facilitator, you can pick one, but you do not have to have one. You may have someone in your life right now who maybe acts as your independent facilitator and helps coordinate things in your life. So you can think about who might be a good pick for this person, or you might want to go with someone who does this for multiple people. And Debra will go into that. So this person can do a lot of things. You decide how you want them to help you. They can help you in the person-centered planning process. So they can run your meeting. They can help you they can lead that meeting, and they can help gather folks and really drive that meeting where, hey, Cathy, what are your goals this year? What do you want your life to look like? What type of services can we find for you to help you meet those goals? Once you have that person-centered planning process meeting, your independent facilitator can actually be the person that helps find people and providers for you. So you'd want an independent facilitator who is knowledgeable about resources in your community. They might know, oh, I know of this great, this great class down at the community's college that would be a great fit for you to help you meet your goal of becoming a graphic designer. I actually know maybe a young adult who it actually matches with your personality, and they might be a great person that kind of help you with that. Right? So they actually can be out there in the community finding people and providers to help you. So your regional center service coordinator does not have that flexibility to go outside the vendor system. They're not able to go into your community and find that help, but your independent facilitator can do that. Once you figure out who's going to help me or what I want to buy with self-determination, your independent facilitator might help you determine how much things cost. So they might help you figure out, okay, this would be a fair rate to pay someone who help you. Actually, let me negotiate that rate with that person. So they might help you with that. So again, the independent facilitator, how much or how little they help is really up to you. I mentioned you may have someone in your life right now who is playing that role. It may be someone you trust, a family member. It may be a friend or a mentor. So the independent facilitator is really open to anyone that you trust and you choose. These are some of the things that you need to consider. An independent facilitator must be trained in the principles of self-determination. And I should have put in there person-centered planning as well. So I apologize for not putting in there. So your independent facilitator that you choose needs to have training and be familiar with the self-determination program and person-centered planning. If the person that you want to be your independent facilitator doesn't have this training yet, there is a free training, online training that State Council has created that kind of goes over the principles of self-determination and person-centered planning process. Very introductory. The cost of an independent facilitator, if you wish to pay your independent facilitator, will come from your budget, right? So if you have an individual budget set for the year and you want to pay your independent facilitator for these services, the cost needs to come from your individual budget. However, and this is great news, this is something that we were waiting for more news from once July 1st. We understand that it takes a lot of work and planning to get people into the self-determination program, and we don't want the lack of funding for person-centered planning services or an independent facilitator to be a barrier. So for people to initially get in and move into self-determination, there is separate funding available for person-centered planning and independent facilitators to get you started in self-determination. So to get you started in, there is money available that will not come from your budget. Okay, so the individual budget, this is always a hot topic. When I do this presentation, people are always asking, how much money do I have in my individual budget? Why are you telling me all these things? Okay, so the individual budget, how much money do I have in self-determination? So the individual budget is the amount of money you can use for services in self-determination for the next 12 months. Self-determination needs to be cost neutral. So what that means is it needs to reflect the same amount of money a person would have spent in traditional services as they would in self-determination. So the budget should really reflect the amount of money you would have spent in traditional regional center services. To start with the individual budget, it's based on the amount of money the regional center spent on you on services in the last 12 months. However, we understand that there are some people who maybe have not spent any money from the regional center just because, hey, these services really aren't fitting what I need. So they can be changed, the individual can be changed if there's needs identified that have not been met for you in traditional services. Okay, so I'm not going to go too much into the individual budget. There's more information if you are interested in self-determination to kind of learn more about the individual budget. Again, this is a brief overview. In self-determination, we have the financial management service, which is the FMS. So how will the supports and services I choose to help me in self-determination get paid, right? So who's going to pay for that class that I want to take? Who's going to pay for that person I chose to help me get to that class? The FMS, or the Financial Management Service, is a required service in self-determination, and the FMS agency must be vended with the regional center. So they are there to help you through self-determination. They're there to make sure you don't overspend on your budget, and they're there to make sure the people that you choose get paid. The FMS will handle the finances and pay for your supports based on what is detailed in your spending plan. So once you have an individual budget, you will decide how I want to spend my money for the next 12 months. We make sure that it meets requirements, and the FMS will pay for these services based on what you decided in the spending plan. There may be some people you choose to help you who may need a background check or need to have qualifications. So let's say for my example with the dietitian earlier, if you say, I want to hire a certified dietitian to help me in self-determination, the FMS will probably ask that dietitian, may I see your qualification and make sure that you're a licensed dietitian. If there are people that help you with personal care, they may have to pass a background check to just ensure safety. Okay, so the FMS is really there to kind of handle the business side of things in self-determination. So in review of the self-determination programs, and again, this is a really general overview, you are the focus and you guide your goals and services and supports. You choose who helps you in the planning process. You can work with an independent facilitator of your choosing. Your services are paid for from the individual budget. And then your financial management FMS provider is there to help you through this journey. If I have done a good job and you are interested in the self-determination program and you want to learn a little bit more or you want to enroll, the first step that you would do is you would complete the self-determination program orientation. We were doing this orientation in person and they were actually 5 hours long in person. It was exhausting for the presenter, me, and exhausting for people who attended. It was a lot of information. So we were able to put it online. It's eight modules online, so they vary from 10 minutes to 20 minutes. And so you can kind of take it at your own pace. So you can take one module at a time. If something didn't make sense to you, you want to hear it again, you could retake it. So in this orientation, you will learn more about the details that I did not go over. So what is a self-determination program? Who are the people that are there to help me? What is the person-centered planning process? How do I get to my individual budget and spending plan, and how can the FMS help me? So if you're interested in self-determination, you want to enroll, the requirement is you have to attend an orientation. Okay, and this is available online for you all. And I believe it's in the information that I emailed to Judy. So you have the slides and you have the flyer of how to enroll. If you have any further questions, you can always reach out to your service coordinator or visit our website. You can also email self-determination at RCOC, that comes to me. And we also have information on our on the DDS, the state website as well.
Great. Well, thanks. And thank you, Cathy. That really was a great overview. And thank you, Judy, for inviting me to talk about the independent facilitator role. So let's start with just kind of what I had laid out. I'm going to skip over things that Cathy has already covered because I think leaving time for questions is probably more important. But I just briefly wanted to go over, we won't talk about what is self-determination, but who is an independent facilitator and a person-centered planner, the role of the independent facilitator, when do you need to hire one, why should you hire one, where can you find one, how do you choose the right one? And then we'll leave time for questions at the end for sure. So I work for a group called Guidelight Group, and there's 5 of us now. We're growing quickly. There is a huge need and desire for independent facilitators, and the founder of the company was actually involved like right at the beginning of the soft rollout. And so as an agent, as a firm, we've handled about, we have over 30 clients across 11 different regional centers throughout the state. And, all of us kind of have our own training and niche. And so we work really well together, and we do a lot of kind of mentoring, and we're able to, handle lots of different types of situations depending on a client's need. So I'll go over a little bit of my background in just a minute, but really where we focus in terms of clientele is transition age youth and young adults, especially folks who want to work or already work and are looking for changes in their life. So we're really focused on employment for people with disabilities. That's a really important, niche that we support. We also do a lot of kind of advocacy at the state level and at the local level. Like I'm down here in San Diego, so I'm on the local advisory committee down here. So all of us are kind of, spread ourselves around, and we try to get around and do as much advocacy as we can for the program. So this is a little bit about my background, and I do have training in customized employment by the Association of Community Rehabilitation Educators, and I'm trained in person-centered thinking and independent facilitation. I've got 13 plus clients across 8 different regional centers right now as an independent facilitator. And like I said before, I do advocacy at the state and local level. So these are the kind of legal definitions and the plain language definition of self-determination. But the way the most simple way to put it is you can take the amount of money that the regional center would have spent on you in the traditional system, and you can make your own goals to achieve and do what you want in your life, and you can decide how you're going to spend that money. And, you know, it just at its core, it's just handing over the reins of all the pieces of living a full life. So just, you know, Cathy described this, but this is kind of a visual way to look at it. So in the traditional services model, you have Sam, who, you know, describes his needs and his deficits to the service coordinator, who writes his individual program plan, and the service coordinator determines which of the pre-existing regional center services the person qualifies for and how much of each service they can have. And then Sam can choose from pre-approved vendors to access each service. And then vendors are paid based on set rates. So this is kind of what it looks like and, you know, how it plays out. With self-determination, it's just a much more fluid model where you have kind of a circle of support that helps you with your person-centered planning. And you're really focused in your person-centered plan, you're focused in developing your hopes and dreams. And then what are the action steps? What are the things you're really going to focus on, like in year 1 of self-determination? And maybe there's certain things you'll wait for a couple of years to focus on, but you have that control and you can set a vision for yourself and really figure out what you want to do and how you want to accomplish that. And it's an amazing process that happens with really like robust person-centered planning, because the people you invite are so important, and the brainstorming that happens and the synergy that happens and the ideas that pop up, it's very inspiring. And for anyone that hasn't been through it, I think it's one of the joys of going into self-determination is being able to be at the center and be, you know, told how wonderful you are and having all your greatest gifts, you know, pointed out, and then having people value and respect what you want your future to be and being there to support you. And that process is so important. It drives everything else. So person-centered planning is very important. And you know, once you kind of come up with, and that includes your service coordinator too. I mean, service coordinators are a very important part of that initial planning and the transition going into self-determination. But it, you know, once your individual budget is figured out, then you have that money to spend on the services, the staff, the classes, the devices. I mean, whatever it is that you need that fulfills the goals in your person-centered plan and are reflected in your individual program plan. Hold on, sorry. Let me go back real quick. So yeah, so let me see if so it's a different looking model, and it involves more people, and that circle of support becomes more and more important. It's really neat to see. I have several clients who are now in year 2 of their self-determination program, and when they compare the circle of support that they had, they kind of fill out that, you know, that spreadsheet that shows like who are their paid and unpaid and who are all the people in their life. And you compare that diagram from year 1 to year 2, and year 2 is just like twice as big, twice as many people. And it really, it's true. I mean, self-determination, when you're really accessing support in the community, you will experience your circle of support growing. And so that's an important piece of it. All right, the 5 principles of self-determination, Cathy already went through, but SCARF is the acronym that I always use. So support, confirmation, authority, responsibility, and freedom. And it's good to keep reminding ourselves of those principles in the decisions that we make and the way that we approach things and get people into the program and through the program. So the independent facilitator is selected and directed by the individual. I mean, we serve, you know, it's the clients that tell us what they want, what they need, how many hours they want to pay us to spend doing it. And, you know, it's a negotiation, but it's, you know, we take direction from the client. So, you know, it's a role, kind of a role reversal from the service coordinator. And, you know, a good independent facilitator is always aware of that dynamic. The thing about an independent facilitator, they can't provide any other service to the participant. So, you know, if you have another like service, let's say that you want, like if somebody wanted to use me to do like customized employment, I could not also be their independent facilitator. So you have to choose one or the other. They also couldn't, you know, have me as a customized employment and then use another independent facilitator through Guidelight Group. So you have to separate out it's important that there's no conflict of interest and there's no like self-referring going on. So that's the importance of that. The independent facilitator can assist the participant in making informed decisions about the budget, locating, accessing, and coordinating services and supports, identifying immediate and long-term needs, developing options to meet those needs, you know, really thinking outside the box and finding resources in the community. They can help with leading, participating, or advocating on behalf of the participant in the person-centered planning process and the development of the IPP, and, you know, pretty much just along the whole way once you're in self-determination also. And they can help with obtaining certain services and supports. That, as Cathy had talked about, it is the independent facilitator is paid by the participant out of the individual budget once you're in self-determination. That initial time period to transfer for the $2,500 is allocated by the state. So that doesn't come out of your pocket, basically. Independent facilitators shall receive training in the principles of self-determination, person-centered planning, and the responsibilities described above at their own cost. So, you know, there's a lot of time and energy that goes into feeling prepared to be an independent facilitator. And we take that role I take that role very seriously. So, so who is an independent facilitator? Really, it can be anyone selected and directed by the individual to assist in implementing the self-determination program. There can be paid IFs, which can be somebody who's not related to the individual, can be a parent of an adult child, or professional independent facilitators. Spouses or parents of children can be independent facilitators, they just can't be paid. Yeah, your independent facilitator could just be someone who doesn't provide other services and is interested in doing that role for you, but, you know, making sure that they have some training and that they do know what they're doing is important. And we'll go through that in a minute. Some questions you can ask to find a good independent facilitator. And they should be, you know, there is, you know, quite a bit of, you know, training available out there for independent facilitators. Different, like the State Council on Developmental Disabilities puts on some training. There's different, you know, group like autism groups and things like that that have put together some training. Guidelight Group actually has an 8-week training course, which was what I took when I was interested in becoming an independent facilitator, and that was tremendously helpful. So the role of the independent facilitator is to create a person-centered plan. So there's like the pre-planning and then the actual meeting, and then creating a plan, like a written plan that's clear about what the person's goals are and what's important to and for the person and all of that. Attending the IPP with the regional center, the IPP meeting, to negotiate and get the budget certified. Also then developing a spending plan with the person. So once the person knows how much they have to spend, then the other side of that is deciding, okay, to meet the first goal, I want to use this service and I'm going to allocate this much money to it. So there's some research that goes on in terms of like trying to figure out what those amounts are, who the providers will be. And you don't have to have like every detail figured out. Sometimes it's okay to just say, like, I'm going to hire somebody to do it, but you don't have to actually identify who that person is prior to getting into self-determination. So there's pieces that can still be worked on after you're actually in the program. NIF can also help with choosing a financial management service. That's a really important thing. You really want an FMS who is responsive and organized and can give you updated spending reports readily. When you don't have all those pieces, it can become very frustrating. So, so definitely like making sure that you're choosing the right financial management service is important. And I just want to point out there's with the soft rollout, what I kind of quickly discovered down here in San Diego was that there were really wonderful person-centered planners available that may or may not have really understood that much about self-determination. And I found people who had spent their whole $2,500 or nearly all of that on a wonderful person-centered plan, but then they didn't have the money or anybody to help them do the budget piece, the spending plan, getting the FMS on board. And so for some of those people, they just stalled for a very long time and had to kind of use their service coordinator and the FMS to try to help them through all of that. Ideally, find somebody who can do like the whole transition. So starting with the person-centered plan and like actually get you through into the program. That is what the $2,500 was intended to cover. So I just want to make like word of caution when you're talking to people or trying to figure out who to hire to do it. Make sure you understand what all they're agreeing to do. Your service coordinator can act as your independent facilitator. You know, the benefits of that are that they know you, they understand the regional center system, and it wouldn't come out of your budget. You wouldn't have to pay for it out of your budget. But there's some downsides also to that. And I think that's in a coming slide. Anyway, we'll talk about that in a minute. So the ongoing role of the independent facilitator. So I have clients who are like, in the role of independent facilitator, I have clients who are just starting the whole person-centered planning process. I have clients who are regional center clients, but they have not accessed services for so long that they have nothing to base their individual budget on. So sometimes I'm involved at the front end trying to help them reestablish services with the intent of going into self-determination. So I have clients who are kind of in that transition period, trying to get into self-determination. And then I have clients who are in their first year, and now several clients who are in their second year, because when each year that you're in self-determination, you kind of go through the whole process again, where you're looking at, okay, do I want to redo my person-centered plan? Do I have different goals for next year? Do I need to, do we need to adjust the budget? Have I had a change in circumstance, or are there things that I still have a need for something that I have not been able to access? So those negotiations kind of continue on each year that you're in the self-determination program. Let's see. Yeah, for many of my clients, I'm heavily involved in locating, interviewing, and hiring their own employees, which is really exciting for some people, especially folks who have used vendors who haven't been able to provide staff for years or months. So we're going out into the kind of the competitive employment, arena and hiring their own people. And the FMS can be really helpful with that because they know a lot about employment law, so they can help with a lot of those pieces as well. A lot of what I do is just helping people find resources and just brainstorming, thinking outside the box, just consulting with people, getting to know people, introducing people. It's like all about the networking and putting people in touch with people who they might not have met before, or they might not have even thought of before. One of the important things that we do at Guidelight Group is we do like a quarterly check on, we do a spending plan check quarterly. So we make sure you're like on budget, that you're spending what you need to, you're not over or underspending terribly. And then we also check on the goals. We want to make sure like that's part of the responsibility of self-determination is you have this money, but you also committed to some goals and some action items, and you committed in terms of how you're going to spend the money. So our job is to kind of help you stay on track with that. And we do that on a quarterly basis. And then sometimes we help with accessing, generic resources that Cathy had talked about. So like other public benefits or generic resources that we need to access. Limitations of independent facilitators. Like I said before, they cannot provide any additional service that's in your spending plan. So they can't wear two hats. They just have to be your facilitator. Some of the downside of using your service coordinator is, I think this may not be true anymore. I mean, I know regional centers are working really hard to get all their service coordinators trained on self-determination, but for many, this is still very new. And so they might not have like just the level of expertise, and because all their clients are not in self-determination, it may be a little bit harder to get through some of those pieces. They won't be able to recommend a vendor that's not a regional center vendor. They can't necessarily negotiate rates with service providers. They can't attend, due process or any kind of, conflict that there is. They're not going to be involved with that. And, they have a lot of other clients, so they may not have time to help with some of the details. When do you need an independent facilitator? So, according to the laws it's written for self-determination, you do not need to hire an independent facilitator. The only required service provider is the FMS. But we do highly suggest hiring an independent facilitator at the very start. And part of that is what I talked about a few minutes ago with making sure that the independent facilitator you hire can actually get you through not just the person-centered planning, but then all the other pieces that take you into transition you actually into self-determination. And you can hire more than one independent facilitator if that fits your needs. You might have, two different people who you think are kind of experts in different areas, so you could hire both. That freedom, that's the freedom, and that's what's afforded in self-determination. Why should I hire? Most IFs will tell you that they highly recommend hiring an IF or person-centered planner for the development of the person-centered plan. And here's why. Sometimes as a parent, you're kind of too close. And so it's okay to, if you have somebody from the outside, they may ask questions, they may bring things up that you haven't really talked about before or thought of before. And also a lot of, I have colleagues in the independent facilitation role who have their own children going into self-determination, and they don't want to do their own child's person-centered plan because they really want to sit back and enjoy the process and be able to brainstorm and kind of take a step back. They want somebody else to do the work. So it's something to think about. You certainly can hire, you can have a parent be an independent facilitator, but there's just pros and cons to it. It just depends on your situation. Let's see. Yeah, we can be great resources. We can help keep you on track. We can help with kind of advocating, especially when there's major changes in your life. We have many clients who are in their second or even third year of self-determination, and then they may have, they've been very independent and living on their own, and then they have really like a major health situation and things really change for them. And, self-determination can be a really great opportunity to like get things that you need quickly when things happen that you're not anticipating, and having a good independent facilitator can really help orchestrate a lot of those things. Where can you find independent facilitators? So the way the law is written is that anybody can be an independent facilitator as long as they have the training. Therefore, there's no like official list of who the IFs are, but there are a few places you can find that information. Some regional centers have lists. I'll let Cathy answer that with respect to Regional Center of Orange County. You can attend different regional center presentations and see if there are IFs in the audience or also participating. Another great resource is to go to your local advisory committee meetings, because a lot of times many IFs who are working in that area will attend those meetings, and you can kind of go in the chat and say, hey, I'm looking for an IF, let me know if you're available, kind of thing. The State Council office also has a list of independent facilitators for their regions. There's a California Self-Determination Program forum, like a Facebook page that you can find folks on. And there's also a new kind of California SDP network that just went live, and the link is here. There are some independent facilitators signed up there as well. And then just word of mouth, ask other people who in the area who they've used. That's a really good way to find someone. So how do you know if an independent facilitator is the right fit for you, right? Is the right person? So as you attend presentations and you meet people, you'll kind of know who you like and who you don't like, right? You can interview them. You can ask for a free consultation. We always provide, an initial free consultation. Don't just hire based on your friends or what somebody tells you to do. You really want to find the right person for you. It doesn't have to be, the person who, lots of your friends use or something like that. Just really focus on it being the right fit for you. And you should ask the IF questions to find out if they're going to meet your needs. So do they take your age group? Do they have experience with your special issues? Have they successfully transitioned someone into SDP at your regional center? Does the person get you, your family, and your community? Are they really listening to you? Are they organized? Do they follow through? Are they speaking to you and not about you? So those are some things to think about, and questions you can just take with you when you're interviewing for independent facilitators. So how are they paid? So during the initial phase-in that Cathy talked about, the 3-year phase-in, the lottery winners were allotted up to $2,500 for the person-centered plan, and then transition into self-determination. Once in self-determination, the IF is paid through the budget, through the spending plan of the person, of the client. And then there is, a new, Cathy talked about this too, like they just passed a bill saying that funding will continue to be available for people now that the program is open to everybody statewide, every regional center client. But we haven't seen any like specific directive from DDS yet. And from what I've seen on these different networks, like some of the regional centers are just honoring it, and they're going to just immediately let people come in, and other ones want to see something like official from DDS before they're going to start to to allocate the funding for that. But that's good news, because for a very long time, like the last year, we have not known whether that 2,500 would be available or not. And so it's made people's lives very difficult, because that's a lot of money to come up with if you have to come up with that on your own. So requirements to begin self-determination: attend the orientation that, you know, Cathy had that great slide. You can sign up for that. I love the fact that it's a, you know, you don't have to like go one night and just listen for 4 hours. You can actually do it at your own pace and, you know, ask questions. Then, you know, get through the person-centered plan, develop the IPP after that based on what's in your person-centered plan. And you do that with your service coordinator. You negotiate and figure out the certified individual budget, and then you come up with your spending plan and figure out which fiscal management, financial management service provider you're going to use. And so that is the end of my presentation.